2026 is going to be an awesome year. We got some pretty cool stuff coming up. First off, we got Foundations of Recovery. This is our flagship program. We're starting it in January.
This is for anyone, man, woman, or couple who wants to come and reclaim their heart from shame, trauma, and betrayal. We start off with an education on all sorts of principles, give you the common language. We feed you from a fire hose in terms of all things recovery.
It is such a great start to recovery. And we get at the roots of things, Tyler. This isn't like any other program. Like, this is our healing journey in process, and Foundations is where we begin.
If you look at the value that you're getting there to kick off a good recovery with all of the right education, all of the right language, and a team to get you started while also being directed by Brannon and myself through the whole process, what a deal.
So if you're interested, if you're struggling, if you've been wanting to do something for a long time, jump into this. This only comes around every so often, and we would love to have you there.
Click the link in the description to sign up for it. And to make it even sweeter, we're also including a raffle for a free pass to the Radiant Dawn retreat. Anyone who signs up for Foundations will be added to the raffle for that free Radiant Dawn pass. If you're a man and you sign up for Foundations, your name still gets entered, and you can give that pass away if you win it to any woman that you want to.
So what you're saying, Tyler, is if you sign up and participate in Foundations, you could possibly go to Radiant Dawn for free?
That's exactly what I'm saying, which is crazy because Foundations by itself is already an insane value.
Man, I sound so salesy. But it actually is awesome. So come to Foundations. And even if you don't come to Foundations, sign up for Radiant Dawn. It's beyond therapy, the best healing experiences that you can have.
Click the link below and come join us. I'm getting burned out with recovery. Is it okay to take a step back? Welcome to the Therapy Brothers podcast.
I'm Brannon.
I'm Tyler.
We're brothers.
We're therapists.
And we know recovery.
Bring your stories, your questions, your successes with real recovery.
Hey, Tyler, you ready to have some hard conversations?
Let's do it.
Let the Therapy Brothers podcast begin. Hey, Tyler.
Brannon, what's going on, man?
Hey, my name's not Brannon today.
It wasn't last week either.
What is my name?
You wrote it down if anyone's not watching on YouTube, he wrote it down as Tyler's sidekick.
Yeah.
It's his way of like just being passive aggressive with making fun of me.
No, it's not. You know what I realized? Last night I watched one of my favorite movies.
What is that?
The Count of Monte Cristo.
Oh, that's a great story.
Movie. And I didn't realize you use the word, I'm your Jacopo. That comes from that movie.
That's exactly, it comes from that story, And what I said is like in the book or in the movie, the Count, he ends up kind of going on this big long journey. And at a certain point in the journey, he's on this beach and there's pirates that are going to kill him. And he ends up saving a man's life in there, and that man's name is Jacopo. And from the rest of the story on, Jacopo becomes...
Wait, let me say that. Tyler, I am forever your man.
I am your man. I am your man.
And he is.
And he basically follows the Count.
He's Jacopo.
The rest of the story, and he is his right-hand man, like complete loyalty all the way in, like I need to change my name to Tyler's Jacopo. To Jacopo. We actually
Jacopo.
Hey, anyone who has a few Jacopos in their life it's incredible. It's incredible to have a few Jacopos in your life. Because you have people that are
advantage of them.
You have people in your corner all the way.
I know, isn't it amazing?
Man, it feels so good to have that kind of like safety and support.
I think be someone's Jacopo and have some Jacopos in your life.
Yeah. You're winning if you are someone's Jacopo and you have some Jacopos.
Absolutely.
So I don't know how you got on that, but that's where we're at.
Because I'm your Jacopo. So, all right. Before we say Jacopo anymore, let's get on to our guest here. So, Ozzy, welcome to the show.
Hey, welcome. Is it Jacopo that means driftwood?
I think.
Oh,
no.
Or he's called Driftwood or something?
Yeah. His name was, what was his name? I watched it last night. His name meant driftwood because they found him on the beach like 2 miles from the island. And so they called him, Satara or something. I can't remember.
No, Jacopo calls him Zatara.
Yeah, but Zatara means driftwood.
Driftwood, yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
So that's good memory.
That's one of my favorite movies. It's very apropos for us having a conversation. So.
That's a great movie. Yeah, I haven't watched it in years, and it was awesome. Well, Ozzy, welcome to the show. If you could give us a little bit of background and tell us what's going on with you, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me on. I guess my story would begin as a kid, and when I was like 11 or 12, I discovered porn and masturbation, all that stuff, and just kept kind of progressing through that. And I had some other family stuff going on, but became pretty addicted, and always had an excuse of why I kept going. And when in high school, I said I'd quit in college. When I was in college, I said I'd quit when I graduated. When I graduated, I said I'd quit when I got married, and it never happened. And I kind of tried to quit myself, and was very involved in church, and tried to get their help, and it really wasn't very helpful. And so I didn't really know what to do. I was lost, and I ended up listening to basically some video casts from a guy named Michael Leahy, and he had a bunch of guests on that were, sex addiction specialists, and I didn't even know that was a field. And started watching the videos, and it was kind of like you guys, and I was introduced to a lot of kind of leaders in the industry, Ted Roberts and some other folks, and Mark Laser, and kind of learned about all this. And I was like, these guys are who I've been looking for my entire life. And this was in 2018. And so I just kind of started listening to what they were saying, and everybody's kind of saying the same thing, like, hey, go find a CSAT, join a 12-step group for people that are having the same issue. You got to start being honest with your spouse. And I was like, man, that sounds tough, but I guess I'll do it. And I just did everything they'd all told me, and dove real hard into recovery, studied, learned, listened to podcasts for, hours a day for, a couple of years. And like in 2020, my family and I go to a family camp together, and I was talking to my wife, and I was like, I bet these counselors could use, to hear a story like this. And at that time, I'd been in recovery 2 years. I'd had no slips or relapses, and I was feeling really good. And, so I started telling my story, and it was really well received. And a lot of these kids, they're like 18 to 22, really resonated with them. And they didn't have adults, talking to them about this stuff. And they had never heard somebody speak so, about the topic so taboo. And this is a Christian summer camp. And so I kind of have got a heart for helping people, and I knew I needed to be in that as far as the 12th step. And so guys that would come up to me and say, hey, this sounds like my story, or I need help, I basically said, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'll help you. And so I basically kind of took on a mentorship sponsor role for that first little bit. And then kind of slowly, after every year of doing this, for the next 5 years, we kind of picked up a guy here, picked up a guy there, picked up a guy here, and ended up kind of having a little underground recovery ministry. And it's still active. It's beautiful. But I just in 2024, I ended up needing to start my own company because just some disagreements with my current company, and so my life kind of got flipped personally and work-wise, and so a lot of my emotional capacity was taken up with how stressful it is to quit your job and start a new business and all that. And I could just feel I had, I don't know, let's say 12 to 15 guys kind of meeting every week. We were trying to call each other as much as possible, and trying to do kind of what you guys call the dailies, and stay in constant communication and stay in connection with each other. And I could just feel that was slipping for me while I was trying to do this company. And slowly over time, I just felt like I wasn't being the leader that they needed. And a lot of the guys kind of stayed in the same cycles, and they would grow emotionally, but wouldn't find a lot of success with their sobriety. And I just kind of found myself getting more, or extending less grace than I think they needed. I just was kind of, the meetings became a chore. And I do have littler kids that I, putting bedtime. Bedtime is really important to our family. And that's usually when we would meet, is in the nighttime. And so it became really just difficult to be have the zeal and enthusiasm to help these guys. And I know they deserve it. And last summer, we still went to the camp, and I did not share my story with the guys anymore, partially because that age group is really difficult to work with too, because they're usually college age guys. They don't have the consequences that older married people have to quit, and so you can kind of get a bunch of freebies, it feels like. And when that happens over and over and over, and I'm trying to help, and they're not taking my advice or whatever, I just found myself getting a little more grouchy. And so a few weeks ago, I decided, I was talking to my wife and talking to some of the guys in the group. They're like, I just need to take a sabbatical, take a step back. And my wife said, yeah, hey, that's fine, but you still need to be working on you too. And I said, okay. And so then the question comes, and the call comes from, like, I don't really necessarily know what to do. I'm in this stage of 7.5 years of sobriety. I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in counseling. I've listened to thousands of hours of podcasts, and I don't hear a lot of new stuff. And I'm kind of tired of helping people. I'm not really tired of helping people, but it's difficult for me to give a lot of time and to make time for recovery calls in the middle of work day. We're still a very young company. And so anyway, I was just wondering if you guys had experience with that kind of feeling of burnout, or advice on what would be a great next step for me to take, things like that.
It's a great topic, man. I'm glad you're on here. It's pretty cool to hear someone who's been in this and actually in terms of like the sobriety part of it, winning for the last 7 years. And that you've also found yourself kind of living some of the principles that the 12 steps would say in terms of giving back and finding a way to help and support. I'm kind of wondering if there's a distinction here that we could draw between two things. One is that are you burned out with working your own recovery, or are you burned out with working with other people who aren't working their recovery?
Probably both. Probably both would be a good answer.
Or are you burned out with life, with starting a new business and these meetings and taking phone calls and things like that?
That's a good question. I don't know that it's necessarily life, but it does feel pretty challenging. I've got two little boys. One's on the spectrum, and that is a good segue to take. Is like most of my counseling for the last 2 years, or therapy for the 2 years after the marriage has been kind of recovered and restored, thank God for that, has been more focusing on my older son who's on the spectrum, he's got what formerly was called, oh gosh, I can't remember the name of it, but it's just barely on the spectrum. But for us, he's very challenging, very difficult, especially for me. And so most of my therapy has been, how do I become a better dad to this kid? And because I've got just my own issues, and he tends to touch all the buttons for me. And so that's kind of what I've been really focused on for the last couple of years, and it's been very challenging. And just being a father to him is very challenging. And so when you have these other things of a new company and trying to help young recovery folks, and it's just, I don't know. Yeah, it just feels like I'm kind of stretched.
Mm-hmm. So, Ozzy, do you know what is your burnout saying to you? So what I mean is if you take a step back and you look at it, like, what's it communicating to you? Have you thought of that?
Not exactly.
what is burnout a sign of?
I would just define it as kind of my emotional capacity no longer has any room for anything additional, but I'm not sure.
Right. So like if I'm like, let's think about burnout in general for a minute. If I'm going to a job that's burning me out and I go there day in and day out, but I'm just burned out. That's telling me that what I do day in and day out is not feeding life into me. It's sucking life out of me. So I'm not really like resonating in this place of like high energy. I'm acting out of my purpose. And so that's what burnout is a sign of, is that I'm feeling compelled, or for whatever reason, I'm doing things that are not in alignment with what God wants me to do. And if that's the case, and I'm just going through those motions and doing it, I'm going to feel burned out. And that burnout is actually important because it's like any emotion or any feelings that we have in our life. It's there to communicate something to us. And I think with this scenario, you look at it, Ozzy, and it's like, well, how can that be the case? Like, you're doing good, you're doing God's work, you're helping people. Shouldn't you be feeling more alive because you're working with these guys? You know, but you're not, right?
Right. Yeah, that's a good way to say it. It's like in the beginning, for the first 3 to 4 years, it was very, it was almost an obsession with, helping people, and it was fun. It was a gift to tell my story because I knew it needed to be told, and people need to be hearing this stuff before they get in really deep troubles. Was my kind of explanation of myself, and it was great, and then just kind of slowly started fading.
Right. And why do you think that is?
Oh, well, kind of the same things I've kind of been saying with the kids and the family and the job.
Right. So there's a lot of different answers, right? Like maybe your purpose has shifted a little bit. And this time of life, your purpose is changed with your parenting and everything that you're doing. So just a thought that let's not just be careful of like thinking you shouldn't be burned out. Actually, you should be, because you are. So we start there, and then we look at why are you, and what is this communicating to you?
I just add a couple of things to where you guys are going with this. I'm thinking, Brannon, what you were saying, what does it mean when you're burned out? And the first word that came to my mind was misalignment. And the misalignment could be a misalignment with my overall purpose, or it could be a misalignment with where I'm putting my energy and my time and my bandwidth and my resources, or it could be a misalignment with my boundaries in terms of where I'm putting all of those resources. And so like, I'm thinking, Brannon, like in our career, like
I've never been burned out, Tyler. I don't know what you're talking about.
It makes sense. Like if you look at statistics, an addiction therapist, the average lifespan of that career is less than 2 years. Most people get into that career because they feel called to it, but then they don't know how to take care of themselves and put things in order and make sure that they're cultivating the right inside out kind of work. And then they get working with people who are struggling with addiction. And this, Ozzy, like how many times does it take for a guy to come in and report another relapse before he finally gets traction? And how often does a guy come in and just want to lift the guilt off his soul by putting the story of the relapse on everybody, but doesn't want to do something else to actually shift or change or move? And if you're taking some kind of responsibility for that, or some pressure to help, or if you're pouring in your time and your energy and there's a phone call that comes through with that guy again, and you're like, man, I should be spending time with my son, but now I feel obligated to take this phone call from this guy who's probably not really that serious anyway. Like, that's of course going to lead to burnout. And I think where Brannon's going is a good thing to ask is, it might be a new chapter in life that you're being called to. It might be that you need to, like for me, Brannon, this happens a lot. I notice when I'm burned out, I am called to this work. I feel called to this work right now. I still get burned out. But that often is an internal thing where I'm like, but I'm overextending myself here, and I'm not doing my dailies and cultivating my own heart here. And unless I do those things, I'm going to continue to stay burned out. Right. But then I can kind of do that assessment and then decide, is it something that needs a total pivot, or is it something that needs a tune-up?
Yep. Ozzy, what do you think about what Tyler's saying?
Yeah, I like both of those, and kind of those three buckets that I mentioned, that take most of my emotional capacity. They all seem very, very important, and this one just seems, I don't know, my family's before it, and I put that, and then my job, it's got to be before it. I have to support the family with that, and so this one just kind of takes the back seat, and it's neat to hear you guys say, like, yeah, maybe it's a new chapter. And that's kind of the story I've been telling myself, but just with a lot of kind of guilt with it, is, well, you're not really allowed to take a break from recovery, because then, you see the guys in the rooms come back. They don't necessarily have the sobriety experience, but they might leave the rooms and they come back worse than when they were there. And I don't want that either. And, then I've got kind of the guilt of starting something really neat, helping, these younger guys. And then I don't want to betray their trust or anything with, an explosion of my own life, but, or, kind of the smaller level of like just not being able to serve them anymore.
Ozzy, if I can share just a little bit of some stories from my life, things that I've learned over the years. So first off, I'm not the one that has really the power to do this, but you have permission to absolutely take a step back. And
he's gonna get off the call and tell everybody Brannon said it's okay for him to just chill out.
Yeah. We sometimes with the work, like Tyler mentioned this about taking too much responsibility. We get over attached to things at times where we think we're so God, we get put in positions, we feel purpose, and then we think, okay, I'm so important, and if I go away, then the world's going to crash and burn. And the betrayed, the addicted, and the expert, I think most of the audience knows how that went, how that finished. And what do you know, Ozzy? Like at the end of that, life went on. Like people figured out another resource. People adjusted. People changed, and that blew up. Like that was like we had all these listeners, all these followers. People were hanging their hat way too much on Ashlyn and Kobe's relationship. And it was good for those people to realize that their recovery was not dependent upon that relationship. It was good for them to realize that they didn't need our podcast in order to be okay. One more story. I was working with this family long time ago, and Tyler, I'd love to hear a story from you about this too, because I know you got plenty. But they had 7 kids. They had 2 special needs kids, and they were on the brink of divorce. There's some betrayal that had gone on and things like that. And I worked with them for about a year, and I was fighting like hell for that family. I was doing whatever I could to try to save that family. Those kids needed 2 parents together. I just knew this was my purpose. This was my calling. I was going to save this family. And the dad had zero desire to save his family. He wanted out. He totally wanted out. I worked so much harder for that family than he did. And they got divorced. And when they got divorced, you know how I felt? Like, guess how I felt?
Gutted.
I was crushed. well, I'm called to do this. I fought like hell. I just like gave everything I could because I felt like I was doing the right thing. I was doing the right thing for this family, and they fell apart. And I was over attached. I was taking way too much responsibility, and I wasn't aware of what my purpose actually was. I decided that was my purpose, to save that family, because I wanted to feel important. I wanted to feel like I can do this. That was not my purpose. I was way over attached to that family. And it led to burnout. It led to like just thinking, what am I doing day in and day out? Why do I do this work? Tyler, I know you've had similar experiences as well, right?
I was thinking about how it spills over in other places with what you're saying, Brannon. You know, like probably I have a really pretty long fuse with my temper. I don't really lose my temper very often unless
but when it blows.
Unless it's in the backyard playing basketball with my brothers or something like that. But this was one particular instance where I probably lost my fuse and lost my temper worse than I've ever have in my life. And it had to do with this very principle, where I was working with a couple and they had come from just the worst place. And I'd been working with them for like 2 years. They'd kind of gone through the crisis point. They'd carved out some like winning. They were both kind of winning. He was getting sober and he was like drinking the Kool-Aid on this lifestyle change. And she was finally kind of getting through all the trauma stuff, and they were starting to come back together. And then we started doing marriage therapy, and I thought that was going great. I'm like, this couple is through the woods. Like we got them. We did it. You know, I'm so excited. They came into an appointment with me like 3 weeks later, and they're like, hey, thanks for all you've done for us. We're getting divorced. And I'm like, what? Like, like, how did I misread that so long? Like, and in my head, I was already making like judgments on, you guys are supposed to stay together because like we worked so hard.
They were your trophy couple.
You guys have already won.
Yes, yeah. You did that, Tyler.
You already won. And then they tell me that, so I'm feeling gutted. And then at that time, I was working at UPS in the early mornings to keep my medical benefits while I was building my practice. And I went to work the next morning, and without knowing it, one of the drivers that was there working next to me was like, said some joke about how no wonder nobody wants to go to see you for therapy. You're this or this. And something inside of me, I had nothing left in the tank. I lost it. Boom. And I just snapped, and I went on this raging thing. Like, you know, people say you go postal. I went parcel. Like, just, you know, just like, I'm like swearing at him words I never say. I'm like throwing boxes at his head, like, just like, you know, just like losing it, just like ready to punch him in the face. And then I had to go home, and I had to tell my wife that I was probably going to get fired at the job that I was getting my medical benefits from because of my outbursts. And so now my burnout, that over attachment, was now spilling into the people that actually mattered the most to me. And yeah, it happens. And when you live in the world of recovery, I mean, look at this, Ozzy, when you look at even a 12-step, one of the glaring holes in 12-step is when you get to the very end, you're supposed to turn back around and help the next man up. But how many 12-step meetings have guys who have like more than 3 years of sobriety in them?
Yeah, not many at all. That's the
not many.
Yeah.
And I think there's two reasons for that. One is that they actually by nature start to move their lives into new places. If you're working an actual recovery, this happens in our groups too, Brannon. It's like a guy will start getting to the end of treatment and he's got things rolling. He's living the right way. He's got his sobriety going. He's kind of healing his marriage. He's taking accountability. He's living these principles of humility, openness, work. Like, he starts calling up and saying, hey guys, I'm not making it to the group tonight because I'm going to go to my daughter's soccer game instead. And half of you is like, oh, but you got to stay committed. And the other half is like, thank goodness he's finally starting to make decisions for himself. And really what it turns into is the real question that I think you have in front of you, and I don't know what your kind of spiritual background is whatever you're choosing to put your time and energy into, is it in alignment with who God says you are? And if you're aligning yourself with who God says you are, then then you'll actually go take care of yourself to stay in the arena, or you'll move to the arena that God wants you in. I think that's where that's kind of where it works. And you should be in a natural progression if you're recovering. Like you shouldn't, like if you've been in this for 7 years, you're probably not going to be going to the foundations group that we're starting right now. That's probably not where you'll be spending your time. You're going to probably be spending your time more in like a marriage building course or something else that's kind of moving you into where you're at in your current stage of recovery.
Yeah, let me ask you a question to clarify. When you're giving me permission to take a step back, right? Are you saying from my own personal recovery, or the kind of helping other people part of my recovery, or both?
Ozzy, I'm just going to be blunt with you, okay? If you're in real recovery, you will know the answer to that question. And what the answer to that question is there's never an end to your recovery work. Your recovery work is a lifestyle. And so like even taking a step back from, say, going to a 12-step meeting would be a recovery behavior. When you're in recovery, you trust yourself, you know yourself, you act from a place of love and intuition, and that's recovery. So do you see what I'm saying? You never take a step back from recovery work. Does that make sense to you?
I understand what you're saying. I hear it two ways in my head where, the principles will always be there. For me, at least is how I'm hearing it. The principles are always going to be there. Do I need to go to a meeting every week? I don't know.
Well, Tyler, go ahead.
I think you probably get a multiple different range of answers on this, but to me, Ozzy, there's the recipe that you use to get yourself sober, and then there's actually a set of principles that you live that would be called living in recovery. And I would say if you're tapped into the principles, those principles generalize to different parts of life. So if I'm learning to put in some right effort towards continued self-growth, if I've adopted the growth mindset, if I'm practicing accountability, if I'm working on being humble, if I'm putting my energies into things that really matter and that I feel aligned with God's purpose for me, it doesn't matter if you're in a 12-step meeting or somewhere else, as long as the principles are being lived. The 12-step meeting helps to strengthen those principles. It helps to kind of build the habits. It helps to, and some guys are going to do that the rest of their lives, and they're going to go and they're going to make a lot of good in the world by helping other people who are coming along with it. But you've got to know, like, the answer to your question is it depends. If you're like, I'm tired of going to 12-step meetings and I would want to go and play video games every week instead. Like, and you know what? I don't know if I'd be like, yeah, good call. And your spouse would probably be like, that's a little scary for me. Right. But if you're like, hey, I'm building a business. I still have good connections. I've still got a good team. I'm still holding myself accountable with this and way. And I'm putting my energies into good things. Like, you're still living the same principles.
Yeah. I think of the best way to say it. The principles are there, and for just how I've kind of lived, let's just in the last few months, my accountability with other, let's say friends in recovery, the calls for my personal recovery have been much less. The meetings have been sparse other than these helping other guys. I don't listen to quite the podcast anymore. And, so the accountability for my own personal recovery has been much less, but without sounding super prideful, like my need for accountability is not very high with my need for integrity. Really important to me. But there's just not a lot of necessarily temptation that I need to go back to the addiction. That you mentioned anger earlier, Tyler. That's got, I kind of forgot to mention that. That's what I've been working on too, in addition to trying to be a better dad. That's part of it, right? Being a better husband and being a better dad. And I found that to be one of the more, probably the most destructive, kind of thing I'd had in my life was that. And so the temptations for me aren't actually necessarily sexual, but the difficulties of parenting or having an explosive episode or whatever like that, that's going to ruin my life now. And that doesn't happen very much anymore. And so just the call volume has been much less, and I feel pretty guilty about that too. So am I still in recovery? I don't, for taking care of myself.
It's the be do have thing, right? Like if you feel like at peace and confident with what you're doing, then the do doesn't really matter as much. Have you guys seen Song Sung Blue? Have you seen that, Tyler?
No.
Ozzy, have you seen it?
No.
You guys should see it. It's a good one. But the guy in there, he goes to 12-step. He's like 20 years sober, and he goes like every week. And I ran a meeting with a guy who went to a meeting every week, and he was sober 40 years. Like 40 years. And he'd say like, yeah, I'm never missing a week. I'm going to hit a meeting a week. And so it's a both and, Ozzy. Like there's this other side of it of like, should that guy be in an inpatient program for 40 years? And then if he steps down, he's like not working recovery as hard because he's, because he should just have his whole life be about sobriety. And like, no, like, there's times and seasons, and we navigate those times and seasons. And I really appreciate your question, Ozzy. It's just your question shows some recovery, because a lot of times the addiction speaking is justifying, minimizing, finding ways around, not wanting to be accountable. And for you to say, I just want to double check and make sure here that as I navigate forward, that's okay. That to me shows some humility and some just you're checking it out with us. But I'd also say you don't have to stay exactly where you're at forever. And just whatever you do, make sure you own it, that you're okay with it. So did I answer that question?
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's good. And you reminded me of when you guys were telling the stories of the difficulty of being invested in somebody else's recovery, and it doesn't always turn out how you want it. And just on my behalf, and probably all of your patients, even though they may or may not say it, but thank you guys. Thank you to all the therapists out there who put their time, love, and effort into it. I know you guys get paid, but it's still incredibly difficult. And the 2-year mark, I'd never heard that before. And for all the spouse supporting therapists, oh my gosh, that's a whole new element too. But thank you guys. It means a lot.
Oh, thank you, man. We're glad to have people like you come on and talk with us. And there was a comment that came through that kind of goes along with a little bit of what we're saying. It says, sounds like a Pokeball variation. And I think what he was saying is like, hey, you're going to probably have some of the base kind of ingredients, but you might go from salmon to tuna from time to time. Or
I love how you can make an analogy. I think he wrote that when I said the name Zatara.
Was that way back then?
I love your analogy.
I just barely saw it. I just barely saw the comment come through. So, but I'm wondering about that too with what Brannon said, and even let's just use your example, Ozzy, for a second. When you got sober from, say, pornography, if that was your first thing, right? When you got sober, you probably had to adopt certain kinds of principles, and it happened to fall really nicely into the program you got. You got into a couple of good groups. You got into some good therapy. You started addressing your trauma. You built a team. You started being accountable. You brought things out from underneath being secret, and then you went to work on changing some of the habits and patterns in your life while you also worked on changing your heart and soul. Right. And now you've kind of grown because of those principles into a new place where you probably wake up most days, and you might still have obviously all the sexual drives, but you pretty much know, even though you're not supposed to say this in 12-step, that you're probably not going to act out today. but you also have something in your life that still needs your attention and work and effort and energy. And you're going to take the same principles that you applied in 2018, and you're going to apply those very same principles as a part of your lifestyle to the new target. As long as you're in that process of working on the continued growth in the new target with the same principles, you're working recovery. It might look different structurally. It might look different logistically, but that's really what I think Brannon's getting at.
Tyler, I love your poke bowl analogy. It actually really works.
Thanks for the poke bowl thing a half hour too early.
And that is like my favorite food too. But
me too.
I want to kind of finish off, if I can tell just a really quick story, one more. And Ozzy, I'm telling this for you. Hopefully you can hear the principle of it. I think a recipe for burnout is working with young adults or even teenagers and expecting sobriety because you're such a great support. And so I had a group, Tyler, sometimes when groups just come together where it's just like, I had like 15 young single adults join a group with me once. And we had our first group and it was really good and everybody was excited. And we got this group together and I had a session with one of the guys like a week later. He's like, I finally feel some hope. I feel like I'm going to be sober. I feel hope. And so we went on, and for the next year and a half, all of the guys continued to relapse. Now, I'm not saying this to like bring any hopelessness to the situation here, but all of the guys continued to relapse. But the group held together really well. And we just kept going, and it was fascinating what happened, Tyler. They all relapsed. None of them got sobriety. Now, if I'm there as the therapist of like, all these guys better be sober completely by the end of this group, I'm setting myself up. A lot of these guys became like best friends. Like they created brothers in that group. Most of the guys ended up getting married, and most of the guys went into their marriage already with a support system, with accountability. And I know like at least a few of them who have had years of sobriety now. This was like 10 years ago. So I look at that and I'm like, okay, shift perspective just a little bit on the purpose of what we're doing and the work that we're doing. We could have looked at that group and said, it's just a big failure. Brannon failed. He's too connected to the sobriety thing and he should have shut the group down. I didn't feel like shutting that group down. I didn't feel like that was the right thing to do. And it's actually been one of the most successful groups that I've ever run. So Ozzy, do you hear what I'm saying?
Yeah, I need to say that more, but I try to say it a lot too, is like the story's not over.
The story's not over. Right.
That's right.
Ozzy, thanks for coming on the show, man. Appreciate men like you. And just like trust yourself.
Yeah,
Give yourself permission.
Yeah, appreciate you guys.
Yeah, thank you, man. We love having people come on who are winning at this and who are willing to come and share themselves the way that you have today. I would say that guilt you feel towards other people, that's also part of being human because you love them and care for them. But where Brannon, I think, is making the distinction, and this is something that helps me sometimes when I feel called to need to make shifts, like I just had to let go of one of my groups that I love so much, but I had so many other things that are being called to me right now. And one of them fell during this group slot. I felt a ton of guilt, but the other side to that is I'm also not their savior. And something that's helped me is that when I align myself with what I think is the right thing for my life and my calling, I can surrender the rest of that back to, in my case, my higher power. And I can trust that there's going to be somebody else to fill in those gaps. I'm not God. You're not God, Ozzy. It's going to be okay. If it's the right thing for you. So anyway, thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Yeah, I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah. Thank you to our listeners for being here. We're grateful to have you. We love the people that we get to interact with every single day. We feel your support. And until next time, keep on keeping on.